Welcome to Salon Talks. I am Mary Elizabeth Williams, and this icon is Kristin Chenoweth. She is a Tony, Drama Desk, and Emmy award-winning actor. She is a singer, a best-selling author, and an advocate. 20 years ago, she originated the role of Glinda in the iconic Broadway musical Wicked. She's also known to television audiences for Pushing Daisies, Glee, Descendants, Schmigadoon, and a host of other indelible performances. Her new book is called I'm no philosopher, but I got thoughts. Mini meditations for saints, sinners, and the rest of us. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Mary Elizabeth. How are you doing?
I am really well, and I want to thank you so much for this absolutely delightful, charming, funny, colorful, and yet also deep and hopeful and spiritual book. It's a real pleasure to read.
Thank you so much. That's what I was wanting it to be. So I'm glad you received it that way.
Well, let's talk about the inspiration for this because you've written a memoir, you've written a children's book. This is very different. This is kind of a workbook. It's kind of a conversation with your bestie when maybe you're feeling a little depleted and you need a pep talk. Tell me what you wanted this book to be and who you want it to be for.
Well, obviously, I wanted to speak to everyone because, female, male, everyone, because I tell you how it kind of started for me. And at first I thought, oh, this is geared towards women. And I'm finding at my book signing, for example, the other night, I found it was half and half, men and women, which I loved. Um, when I first was approached about writing another book, I thought, no way. This constant book report due. I can't do it. It was at the height of the pandemic, before vaccines, before we really knew what was going on. And my agent said, well, what else are you going to do? I mean, you're not going anywhere. And I was like, he has a point. But I just needed it to be authentic and come from the heart and figure out what it was going to be. And I'm a big journaler. I'm also a big reader myself. And left to my own devices, I can stay up all night writing. And I do that in my journals. And I started reading my journals. I took the time to start going back and reading some of my journals. And I thought, I wonder if there's a book that I could write about some of these journal entries, or at least have chapters that are topics that come up again and again in my journal. And that's kind of how it started. And then it just snowballed into philosophies and quotes I love and why. And then some of my own quotes as well that I crack myself up on. I don't know if they're funny or not, but anything that I could give encouragement by what I've learned. I show in the book a lot of the good, but I also show a little bit of the dark and not something I'm comfortable in normally doing. Um, but it was important to do so.
Yeah, and it feels like, I really love when I see a book that has a bright pink cover that is so whimsical and cute, like truly cute, but also does go into these dark places. You talk about real challenges that you've had, and you talk about depression and anxiety and death and grief and all of the and forgiveness and getting to these places in your life that are hard to get to. And obviously a big part of that is your spirituality. Talk to me a little bit about that side of it, because you have your foot in a lot of, in well, at least two worlds. I guess that's as many feet as we have, but talk about bringing the spirituality into this very mainstream book and to audiences who may feel differently and may have very different views.
Oh yeah. Well, Mary Elizabeth, when I first started this career, I came from Oklahoma. I was just a very normal Oklahoma girl who wanted to sing and dance and act. And I didn't know when I moved to New York that like people don't really talk about Jesus or God. I mean, you can, but it's not like being from the South, right? And I learned here there was way more of a diverse community, people that I was meeting, and I loved it. I loved it because just because I believe a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way. It just means it's right for me. It's what works for me. And, thoughts on judgment comes up a lot in the book because being a person of faith, and saying it in this industry, I always felt like I was being judged. And I don't really lead my life with judging others. So why was I being judged? So, of course, it's going to be in my book. It's a huge part of the journey so far. Not everybody agrees. That's okay too. I have friends that are nothing like me. And on paper, we should not be friends, but we're besties because they challenge me. They make me think a different way, perspective. Hopefully, I do the same for them. That's what makes relationships fun, interesting, and I believe can really stand the test of time. And also, frankly, it's a relief to have a friend group where everybody can bring their perspective to something in a way that you might have thought. And so that's what else I was trying to do with the book too. It's like, this is my perspective and this is what I think. And that's, what are yours? And how do you view this situation, that quote, your life in a pie chart? That's why there's, working stuff to do inside the book, a working book, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's, it's like when my kids would have those kind of like destroy this notebook or these kind of, we don't get a lot of those when we're grown-ups. We don't get to play as much when we grow up. And this
No,
is a book that is very playful, but also really, really challenges the reader, I think, in unexpected ways to be curious, to be forgiving and to be open. And, you start with talking about doubt, which I think a lot of people on the other side of the conversation about Christianity don't think is part of the discussion about faith, is part of the discussion about spirituality. And you open with doubt and questions.
yeah. I think that if you're a thinking person and you're invested in your faith and your beliefs, first of all, there's been a time in my life where I had to really look and see, is this what you believe? This is what you grew up with. This is what you were ingrained with. But is it truly your belief? I came to the conclusion that yes, it was. That I did have some questions, though. In my first book, the memoir, I had like a postscript. I called it Questions for God. And things like, why do people hate gay people so much, God? And what happened to Jean Bonnet, God? And I didn't know that so many people would be interested in that and love that section. So I did Questions for God Part 2. I don't question God's love for me, but I have questions for him, because why wouldn't I? After Cain and Abel, was there a first woman? I want to know, because I have questions for God. And when I get to heaven, I believe that all will be revealed, and some of it will be revealed through life lessons here on earth.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought that section up, because doubt is part of having faith, and to question and go, why that? Okay, I'm going to take the meat that serves me well, but I'm not going to choke on a bone, which is in the book by my grandmother. And I love that she said that to me, because I've taken it throughout my life and used it.
I love that. I love that part of it too, and I love the way that you explain it. That it is about just taking the stuff that nourishes you, and knowing what you might choke on, and you need to spit out. And you talk about your advocacy in the LGBTQ community and what a big part of your life and your service that is. I'm curious, because you are this representative of these different kinds of world. Have you ever had people come up to you from the Christian world and say, you really got me thinking about my own perspective, and you've really challenged my beliefs in a way that have made it a little more expansive now?
Yes, I have. And honestly, if I could tell you just one conversation that I had with a woman many years ago, and she said, when did you start being the gay rights advocate? Because of Broadway? And I said, no, it was in the third grade, when one of my friends, who was my buddy, started getting taunted. And I started my quest of understanding it then. She said, well, my daughter has come out as trans, and I can't accept that. I said, okay, I have a question for you. She goes, because of my faith and our faith. And she goes, that's where I have a little, she goes, I love everything about you, but I just have a little problem here, because you seem to cherry pick what you want to take and then the rest. And she goes, that's not how our faith is. I said, you're right. That's your opinion. You're absolutely right to have your opinion. I'm going to ask you something. Is it worth kicking your daughter out of the house, telling her she's going to hell and damnation because of how God put her together? Is it worth it to you? What if she's wrong? Okay. What if you're right and she's wrong? She'll find that out later when she goes to heaven. She'll find it out. It'll be revealed to her. But what if she isn't and you're wrong? Is it worth it to you to put her to the side, disconnect from her? She goes, well, it's breaking my heart. I said, so she goes, I can't get well. I'm sick all the time. I go, okay, there's your answer. You're making your own self sick because of your, pardon me, bigotry about a certain aspect of your daughter's life. When you have unconditional love, I said, do you feel that you have unconditional love for her? This was at a book signing. She said, I do. I go, you don't, because and she started to get upset. And I gave her a big hug. And I said, it's okay. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, I'm not even a therapist. I just know that it's not worth it. I am sure that I have done things in my life that have embarrassed my parents. Not everything I say do they agree with, but they would never toss me aside because I'm their daughter. And that's like our Heavenly Lord. He does the same thing. He can be frustrated. He can almost feel like, are they not listening? This is for your own good, or this, I set this example so you would learn not to do that, whether it's a parable or not, And I just said, our Bible is a great guide, and our faith is a great, that's all I keep my focus on, is how God's going to work in my life. But listen, do not let her go over that. And she just cried and cried and cried. I always wondered about, she said, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. And I always wondered what happened there. I didn't mean to go off on that, but these are why you write books. This is why I write books, because I love to hear from people what moved them, what made them think a different way on something. And that one was one of the more powerful stories that I came into contact with.
Yeah, no, I mean, Kristin, just hearing that as a mom, that kind of unconditional love that we try to practice, and I also get from my spirituality. It's like that's it in your gut, it in your heart, and it seems like pretty basic. But I love that you had that experience, and I'm sure you have experiences like that all the time. I also love that you talk about forgiveness in this book and about what that really looks like, because part of forgiveness sometimes means getting angry, means owning how you feel and owning what happened to you. And you talk in this book, I know a lot of people have asked you about this, but I have to talk about it, this accident that you had in 2012 on a set of a television show. You also talk in the book about how you're tiny. People love to talk about how tiny you are. You are literally the good witch. And I wonder if part of what you've learned along the way, in the way that you were sort of steered into responding to this accident, has to do with people's perceptions of you and being this tiny good princess. And what you've learned about maybe speaking up for yourself and owning forgiveness, but also owning anger.
I love this question, this comment, Mary Elizabeth, because what I came to understand about my own self is that I had a lot of anger. Not only did it trigger anxiety and depression for out of the blue, but I had a lot of anger. And why? Because I do a cheer that I made up that I think a lot of Southerners can relate to. It's called push it down, way down, push it down, way down. And I was the queen of it. There's a problem, let's push it down. You have injury and pain, push it down. Someone's done harm to you, you know what? Push it down. No, it comes up in a lot of ways. And it was expressed to me from people I work with that maybe it wouldn't be a good idea for me to take action because then I would never work again. I didn't take action and take care of myself out of fear and worry and anxiety that of my career would end. Would it have? It'd be an interesting experiment to go back in time. One thing I would say that now it feels like it'd be easier to do that for me. Not just my age, just about because of where we are in this life about, I learned things from the younger generation, and hopefully I can impart what I know to them as well. But I learned like, no, that's not right. If you notice the younger generation, it's like, no, I need 15 minutes to me time. I got to have a mental health day. I'm supposed to work out. I can't go to this fancy thing. I'm like, don't you want to? This is your career. And now I'm like, no, take a little page from them, just a little one, and listen. Now I probably would have not been afraid and not been afraid. And I would have shouted it from the mountaintops. But then I was scared and it caused a lot of undue problems for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, I learned a huge lesson. And by me speaking about it in such detail, um, finally, I've spoken about it over the years, a little bit here and there. It feels like some of the anger, even through this book tour, is being released. Just to be able to say it. And I remember one of the people that um, used to work with me said, well, wasn't that bad though, right? And it was from a woman. And I said, I had a 7-inch skull fracture, cracked nose, teeth, ribs, and a neck problem. It's a problem and a concussion. I'm lucky to be here. And so when it happens to you, first of all, you gain empathy for others' pain. And I see others who have pain and I go, I see you and I'm sorry. And yeah, it's been an interesting time dealing with it. And that was all those years ago, right? But yeah, I still deal with it.
But I think when you have an experience in your life that there's a before and an after, it changes you forever. You talk about the fear that you felt back then of reprisal. You talk in the book about courage. You talk in the book about taking risks. I'm curious now, what scares you now? What, if anything, are you afraid of today, Kristin?
I mean, I would be completely inauthentic if I told you I wasn't afraid of anything, but I am more open to things that scare me. If I do a project that scares me, I know it's probably the one to do. Um, Also, I'm open. I don't like the idea of it, but I'm open to the idea of letting the world see, oh, that was a hashtag fail. I think normalizing failure helps our youth. Not every, not everything is perfect, rainbows and unicorn, and I don't toot glitter. Okay. I have failed big time in my life. And I've worked very hard at letting the public see only part of it. And now I'm not so afraid of that. Do I like it? No, but I'm human.
But if you don't toot glitter, then no one toots glitter. If you like, you are the one person on this planet who should toot glitter, Kristin. That's my expectation of you. I would pay to see you tooting glitter. I have to ask one more thing along those lines. The film version of Wicked coming out, the introduction of this book by your friend and mentee Ariana Grande. I have to ask about this show because I know how indelible and important it is to so many people. At the time, did you know it was going to be what it has become? And what do you think it is that makes this story so, so special and so meaningful to so many people?
At the time, I remember telling Adina after our opening night, because we got kind of mediocre reviews. And I remember telling her, it doesn't matter because this, you defy gravity, girl, at the end of Act One, against all odds. And we have a huge duet about forgiveness with friendship and love, which is the real theme of the show that I think works. I knew after our opening night on Broadway, I was in a massive hit. Did I know it would become a juggernaut? No. I mean, I didn't know. I had prayed before the show happened. I said, Dear Lord, I really want my Les Mis Phantom. I want one of those. And I believe when we pray and we can pray, we're allowed to pray specifically. Sometimes it's in God's will. It's like, yeah, here it is. And I feel blessed that God's timing and mine landed at the same spot. I always tease myself. I say, every time you plan, God laughs, Kristin. Like, stop it. Stop it. But the theme overall for the show for me that I think makes truckers come up to me as well as little girls, as well as gay couple, as well as my friend, all of us. It's the same thing. There's two women that are the love story of the show. And by love story, I don't mean the typical, I just mean that's the heart of it. First of all, we see two women who are best friends, unlikely best friends, showing each other different perspectives. Both of them are a little bit evil, a little bit wicked, and a little bit good. Both of them. Not wicked doesn't mean one girl. Glinda doesn't start out so nice. It's the journey she has to make her actually become Glinda the Good. And it's the journey that Elphaba has to make her become wicked. And what I love to hear is when two people say we met at the show or we met because of the show and now we're best friends. And I see tattoos of for good, for good. I think Stephen Schwartz was such a genius. You know, when music theater works at its highest level, it propels the plot, yes. It's a beautiful song, yes. But when those lyrics are sung and it's about forgiveness with the person that you love the most and a goodbye in a way and love, it's deep. It's deep. And we did it 8 times a week and the response was, and I went a couple years ago to see the show just because I wanted to see it. I hadn't really ever seen it. And I thought, oh, there it is. That's why it's still going. There's those three things that I wanted: friendship, love, and forgiveness. It's still there. So that's why it lives on.
Kristen, it's one of your chapters in the book. It's closure. It's very much about closure too. Absolutely. It's I love this book so much, Kristen, and it's such a privilege to talk to you. And I'm so excited for other people to get to enjoy this and work with it and play with it and pray with it as well. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute privilege and
Well,
pleasure.
and thank you for having me and for reading it,
Oh,
for reading the book. I appreciate it and have just a great day.
thank you, Kristen. It's been a delight. Thank you.